Okay, so that is about travel. Now we're going to talk about gear. So we did a little pause in between there, kind of reset all the recordings and everything, and we were talking about one of the trips that you guys took to Indonesia together. That was one of your first trips that you took together,
That was
right?
our very first trip together.
Yeah, and sort of on the equipment side, we were talking about what things to bring, and you had mentioned like meeting some of the locals, like the kids and
Yep.
some of those kind of things. Tell me a little bit about, kind of reiterate that because
Sure.
that was really important, I think.
So, being a new guy, I mean, I didn't really know a lot about what we would be seeing out there. I mean, Peter kind of warned me, and then he told me he had purchased a bunch of notepads and some candy and some stickers and some little dolls and just stuff for the kids. So when you get into this third world country and you get into these just poverty driven neighborhoods and or these little what do you call them, a village
Little village.
where you have all these little monk kids, children,
No, they're local kids,
local kids.
and they don't see tourists. And they've probably never seen a white person as big as Brad and somebody as old as me. So it was kind of a novelty.
It was quite moving. It was probably one of my absolute favorite parts of the trip when we actually sat down with at the local
The little village
village.
centre. Yeah.
And the head monk was there. He had all the children come over had just gotten out of school,
Right.
and they were all dressed in their clothes, and you could just tell when we sat down with them, and then we started taking out these little gifts that, I mean, their eyes just absolutely lit up. It was incredibly moving. It was amazing.
That's neat.
It was great.
It was great. And then, the one thing I remember is we had this one little kid got a package of stickers. Like a multi-pack of stickers.
Yep.
Some of the other kids got dolls and, coloring books or crayons. But this kid got a package of stickers. And he literally opened that package up and started sharing one sticker with each of the kids in the group. And it was just like, it was just so incredible that they were just so generous and that they were going to share with each other. And
Yeah.
I just couldn't believe it. It was amazing.
That's awesome.
So he'd share it, and then he'd get a pen from the other kid.
Yeah.
And
A little trading going on. It was,
the thing that was also kind of strange was they didn't like the dolls with the black hair. They wanted all the Barbie kind of dolls with blonde hair. Because it was so different. They're looking at these and going, really? What's this? Is this from another planet?
they were mesmerized. It was amazing.
Yeah.
It was fun.
Wow.
And we did that in every little neighborhood that we went to. I mean, there was a couple neighborhoods. Peter had submitted a photojournalism shot at this one neighborhood that we went to, village that we went to, and everywhere you go, some of the kids they ask you for money or what have you, and I kind of found, for me, it was, if I walked through a little village and there was a kid just sitting there with their mom and you could see what their living conditions were, and I always kept a little bit of change in my pocket or some dollars or
Right.
just enough of, and I'd look over at them and I'd go, come here, and they'd get a big smile on their face, and I would just hand them a couple dollars, but if they ever asked for it, I didn't do it. But
Right.
And just to see their eyes light up, and it was amazing.
That's awesome.
It-
That's awesome.
it was-
So a positive, having a positive impact there.
Right.
So, part of the equipment is
Right.
this idea that you're trying to give back a little bit to
the-
the
them.
local community and then make it fun for the kids. So bring crayons, notebooks. What shouldn't you bring to give them? Is there anything that you can think of that
I took sugar-free candy because I didn't want to be contributing to their dental issues.
Uh-oh.
But one of the things that you have to take into account, we didn't want to take any like American flags and all of that stuff. We didn't want to do that.
Okay.
We wanted to be completely neutral. But one of the things, the absolute hardest thing, coming from a wealthy, both and I are Brad, we're really comfortable, we can afford a lot of things, going to a poverty-stricken place where $1 US can feed a family all day. The hardest problem is not giving them too much money. And we want to give them money and give them stuff and whatever, but we were reminded more than once, please don't give the locals, $10 or $5. Only give them just a little bit of change, because we don't want them every time that there's a tourist or a white person or traveller to start going over and begging for money and beg, which now a lot of the big cities, they do.
Right.
We want to avoid that. We wanted to give them something that they could, use, like little crayons and notebooks and pads and so on. But I would say take things that are educational and take things that they could use, like socks, shoes, this, that, but, geared for the kids as opposed to the adults, so that the kids would have a memory of two white guys coming in and all of a sudden we got these things, and they will remember that. But that, and then also helping them with the environment, trying to teach them to pick up all the crap off the ground. And in Indonesia, where these trees were, I paid the head of the village $500 to clean up the entire beach. It took him and 80 people a day and a half, and they picked up every diaper, pen, cigarette lighter, on the beach, picked it all up, and it was clean and pristine. They had about, I have a picture of it, about 85 big trash bags of crap. And I send the village elder on PayPal, I send him about $80 to $100 every month, and he sends me a timestamp photo of the beach to show what the beach looks like and how nice and clean it is. This is in a remote part of Indonesia.
Yeah.
I mean, I know it's only a tiny little thing, but we have to help and educate them and show them what they need to do.
Yeah, that's good.
I just want to add a little more. We went the one village where we gave all the kids the stickers and the dolls and all that.
Yep.
Kind of off the side of that area, we totally invaded this family. We went over there, totally disrupted them. They were working, and we just asked if we could come in, and they said yes, and they let us go into their property and look at their kitchen and their living quarters and all the, just the way that they live. And for me, I gave that family money because we really came in and just completely disrupted their day, and they were so gracious to us.
Right.
And they were so kind, and they educated us to how they cook and how they,
Oh, wow.
they literally have like a little hut with dirt and a fire pit inside and maybe a pot on top of it, and that's their kitchen.
Wow.
So I got to see things that I might not normally get to see, and I probably spent a good hour in with that family. And so for me, that was my way of saying thank you to them, because I could tell them thank you, but
That's great.
Very humbling experience.
Very humbling.
It sort of comes back down to, you pack out what you pack in.
Right.
You leave no trace, but in this case, it's really about being respectful.
Right.
Of where you're at.
Right.
Which I think is just an overall good tip anyway. No matter where you go, right? Whether you're traveling, to a local state park, or you're going to a national park, or you're traveling overseas to a foreign country, right? Like, be respectful.
Be respectful.
Right? Ultimately.
And we want to be cognizant of the fact that we want to represent photographers and, Americans in a good way, not a bad way, because there's a lot of photographers out there that will trample over everything and be hostile and go into private places and take pictures that they shouldn't. We want to go in and be respectful and give photographers a good name around the world, and also show that America cares, that we're not just out, to kill everybody and blow everybody up and all that sort of, because that's all they see.
Right. Well, no, that's important too. This idea that it's easier to ask for forgiveness than permission really only works for you that one time. Then everybody that comes in after that,
exactly,
they're going to assume that every other photographer is like that. I see that in the wedding industry when I go out to do a shoot somewhere. So that's just really good advice, right? Even though you might never come back to that country, the next set of photographers that are going to come in,
right?
You want to set a good example.
Yeah,
for them.
exactly.
So,
Sorry, one more question. Sorry, interrupt. No, because while I think of it, because if I don't think of it now, when we're doing photojournalism photography and we're roaming around taking pictures, I always ask. I always ask before I take the photo. A lot of people say no, no, no. And I always respect the person that I take the photo.
Yeah.
And I have sent hundreds of photos to people afterwards and say, thank you very much. I sent them a copy. But you have to respect the different cultures and the different people.
Yeah.
Right.
You can't go in there and just trample over the top of them. It is real bad.
Well, it's like I think when you went to Papua, right, and you
Yeah.
photographed the chief,
Yeah.
because you were respectful, he kind of gave you full access,
Right.
right?
And we're best friends now.
But had you not been respectful, and we hadn't planned on getting into that, but maybe we'll talk about that a little bit. But you've got some amazing images from there. You don't always get amazing images.
No, no.
But
it's
that one,
not always.
that one you got some amazing.
But it comes down to you have to have ethics and be
Respect.
respectful of people when you travel, whether it's other photographers that you're with and the local community, so that they don't
Right.
get that horrible impression of, oh, look at these bastard tourist photographers that trample over us all the time.
Now, do you find, and I direct this at you, Peter, because you've traveled so much more internationally in this situation than either I or Brad has. Do you find that most countries and most people that you go into are very hospitable to you and very, very accepting and gracious to their time? And
It's changed a lot in the last 20 years. Like Thailand, forget it. You can't go in there and take a picture of a monk. It's just not going to happen. There's other places that don't want you in there, and it's getting worse because they're seeing more things on the internet. They're seeing more things, what's happening in the US and world. So you have to really pick the places that you want to go. It's gotten more difficult because of, kidnappings and ransoms and all sort of thing. Theft is a huge problem. It's just gotten a lot more harder that you have to be really on your toes and make sure that you don't go into the wrong neighborhoods, wrong area, and make sure that you really understand where you are
right,
and pay attention to what's happening around you, because it could turn quite quickly and you need to then get out. And it can happen.
Right.
So, you just have to be careful.
so Brad, let's start with you.
Sure.
Your 50-pound backpack. Tell me a little bit about what you find as essentials, what you find as if I have room, let me take this. Like walk me through, because we know Peter did sort of a crappy job packing his bag this morning, but you, on the other hand, packed it as if you were going to go take a big international trip.
True. Yes.
So tell me what your thought process was. Let's go through what's in there. Show me some of the stuff that you've taken and why you've chosen to do those things.
And can I just jump in before Brad? Sorry to interrupt. The criteria for this is that when we travel, I'm not talking about driving. When you drive, you take the kitchen sink, you take everything, right? Because driving is easy.
Like when you went to Oregon.
No,
Well,
we flew to Oregon.
Okay, so you're
Okay.
talking about road trip.
Anytime you get on a plane and it's getting worse, the limit on a carry-on is 14 pounds. And that's one item and two items. But if you're traveling business and first class, it's a little bit better. So Brad's camera gear, 60, 50 pounds. Mine, with two bags, is about 60 pounds. It becomes a huge problem. So you have to pack accordingly. And it is really complicated. Last trip into Asia, they stopped us and weighed our gear. We had to reallocate and put stuff into pockets. And lucky the guy checking us in was a Sony shooter. And he said, all right,
okay, they let us go through.
he let us go through. Otherwise, we would have been stuck. So with that in mind,
So domestically, I have not had an issue with my bag.
Right.
However, if they asked, I would be absolutely in trouble because I would not be able to get rid of gear. I would have to put it in my checked luggage and it would have to get checked.
Got it.
But that being said, okay, so I'm sure we'll hit on this later about the problems with the way this is packed. I mean, this bag is absolutely stuffed with everything I have. I try to get it all into one bag. and it's got a laptop on it. You know, it's got a 17-inch
Right.
laptop.
These are the you guys both had mind shift bags.
Yes.
Right.
Which open from the back.
Correct.
So that when you put them on the ground,
Your gear is available.
your
to
gear is available to you. And you both have the larger ones, correct? The
Yeah.
36 liter?
We both have large and small.
But these are the large ones.
Yes.
These are large.
is that the
ones,
big one?
These are the 36 liter. So,
Okay.
so Peter, grab that because I want to give it some scale, right? Like that's a hefty bag.
That's the largest bag you can go with a carry-on bag.
Okay, so this bag you took to Indonesia.
I
Yes.
took it to Indonesia. I took it on the East Coast, and I took it to Oregon,
And-
all on the airplane.
And the international trip where I took this and a think tank rolling bag.
I took the
And the biggest takeaway from this is that when you are moving through the airport and coming to the checkout and getting on the plane, you need to walk and act like this weighs 5 pounds and your backpack weighs 2 pounds.
Right.
If you look like you are struggling
They're gonna weigh you.
and hobbling and look like you're
Oh,
limping,
they're gonna call you over.
yeah, they'll
They'll
call
weigh
you
you.
over and they'll weigh you.
They'll weigh you.
And it's happened to me only once in the last, I don't know, 30 years. I had to check it in, and I couldn't carry it on board going from Hong Kong to Singapore. And they lost my camera gear for 4 days.
So how do you weigh this at home before you leave? Is there a device that you can get? Oh. Yeah. How do you, I mean, look, you're packing for a once in a lifetime trip. You want to make it as easy as possible.
Right.
How do you weigh that? Do you just set it on a scale or do you actually have
I don't weigh it.
I have a special scale that you weigh it.
Okay.
Because the bag is 50 pounds or less. And the problem that you face going internationally is that you travel international, it's 50 pounds. And then you travel domestic in Indonesia, and it's 30 pounds. So then all of a sudden,
you got there with 50 pounds,
Yep.
but now you can only travel internally with 30.
same in Australia, same as Europe.
Okay.
And the problem that you face is 20-pound overweight will cost you $600 US. So then you need to take gear out and stick it in pockets, which I have. I have that.
Because you're allowed to have things in your pockets. So
Yeah.
Okay, so that's good to know. So let's get back to
what's in here?
what's in your bag. Like, what do you take, right?
Okay.
So
So this is my personal opinion, and Peter has a little more equipment than I do. I take 2 regular camera bodies. One's mirrorless camera bodies.
Okay.
One is a backup, and one's a primary.
okay, what are you
because
shooting?
I have a Sony A1,
okay,
which is their flagship, and then I have a Sony A7R3,
okay,
and that's my backup camera.
okay. But they're both about the same weight.
Pretty similar,
close.
pretty darn close, yeah.
Yeah, mirrorless has really helped
Right.
with the weight class.
And then I have a Sony A7R2, which is an infrared camera.
Okay. Right.
So that's the 3 bodies that I take.
And for those who have not heard Peter and I and Brad talk, we love our infrared. We're not going to go off on infrared,
No,
but
no.
it's important enough that it takes a place in your bag. We'll
Right.
just say that, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, it adds a whole nother element to your photography trip.
Right.
Period. So
We don't want to even discuss it. So don't even, if you don't own one now, don't even buy it.
Right. Right.
You don't want to hear about it, don't say nothing, don't buy it.
right. So then, in addition to the camera bodies, this is where it all goes south.
Let's pull
because-
some stuff out of it. Just start pulling stuff out.
So,
You might want to sit because now your head is out of the frame.
okay, batteries for the A7R2 and the A1 and R3.
Yep.
So plenty of batteries, and I think I have 6 batteries for each camera.
Do you find that you need more batteries because your charging options are challenging, or the cameras just use that many batteries on a shoot?
Both.
Okay.
The A1 is definitely better,
Yeah.
and the Mark III is okay, but the Mark II and Mark I was horrible, and everybody knows that
So
about
just
it.
a lot of batteries.
Yeah,
A lot of
batteries.
Yeah.
I mean, how bad would it be to roll out and you find yourself on a full day of shooting and you run out of battery, and
Right.
you can't charge it.
Especially
It would be
running out of an SD
especially
card.
if you're traveling, you're just it'd be
Luckily, you guys traveled together and you're both shooting Sony.
Yes.
If I was there, I'd be solo because, we can't
Yeah.
share batteries. So they definitely carry a lot of batteries.
We wouldn't care
Exactly.
that. You shoot Nikon.
right. So there's the A1 body and the
Right.
so then I'll start with I have a 24 to 70 that goes between the A1 and the R3. I have a 24-70 that never comes off of the infrared
The
because
infrared.
because
So that you have a 24 to 70 f4 that you
right,
leave on the infrared because infrared attracts dust like crazy.
correct.
So that one's just locked on.
It locks on and never comes off.
Okay.
Then I have a 16 to 35. I have
And are these G Master lenses?
these are all G Master lenses.
The best you can get.
2.8. I have a 1.4 converter. And I always take my macro lens, and it gets probably used 10% of the time or 5% of the time, but I always have it for whatever reason. A 70 to 200, version 2, 2.8, and then this beast right here, the 2 to 600. So, oh, and you got to have a lightning trigger in case lightning happens, right? You got to have the lightning trigger. And then I've got all my my wireless triggers and memory cards and all that stuff packed in here. And then in the front I have a laptop. I have multiple lights,
Filters.
filters that I didn't bring. I have a think tank filter bag about this big that stays connected to this bag because you always have to have your filters with you. And that's it. I, and in my experience, in all of my trips, I probably should take the 3 bodies and 3 lenses.
Well, that's kind of what I was going to ask. So, out of all this equipment that you have, a couple of these are really fringe type pieces of glass that
Correct.
overlap. So, what one piece of equipment would you remove?
I would take the 2 to 600 out.
To take the 2 to 600 out. Okay.
Yeah. Here's the thing. This for me. Plan your trip and know what you're going to be photographing, and
Right.
take the according lenses.
Right.
Don't plan your trip like, well, I might need this because what if this happens or what? You're going to do landscape photography.
Right.
Take the appropriate lenses for your landscape photography, and don't overthink it because I'm going to tell you, from going to Indonesia with Peter, the amount of equipment we took to Indonesia was ridiculous.
'Cause we took-
Ridiculous. We took the kitchen
Lighting.
sink.
Lighting
We took
equipment.
lighting equipment. We took
Stella Pro.
it was absolutely ridiculous, and it was horrible. On both my trips recently in the U.S., I took all of this plus my laptop,
Yeah.
and here, obviously, I found that most of the time it was a 16 to 35 or the 70 to 200 that was being utilized for my landscape photography.
Yeah.
Maybe a 70 to 200 with a 1.4 if I wanted just to get a little bit more, but this is really small in comparison to this nonsense here.
Right. Right.
And honestly, I mean, look, you got to have 2 camera bodies. I think it's a real must to have 2 camera bodies because if one goes down,
Right.
then you've just wasted your money on everything. So you got to have 2 camera
Sure.
bodies. But where I was going with this is on both of these trips, you've got all this equipment and you get up in the morning and you jump in your car, and this is literally, I'm going to say it's 60 pounds altogether with my laptops in there too.
Right.
If you have the convenience of, okay, I'm at a hotel room, I can throw a few things in a bag, I can leave this stuff in the room, and we can go do my shoot during the day, and I can just take my bag out with me. Fantastic, great, that's wonderful. However, if you're going from point A to point B because you're going to go to a new location, and in that between point A and point B, you're going to be shooting, and you have to have all your stuff in your car. Now you have to worry about theft and people breaking into your car, and am I going to leave something in the car?
You're carrying
Yep.
everything.
So
all the
you're
time.
carrying everything
Right,
all
right.
the time.
Right.
And when we were in Oregon, it was brutal because I had all of this stuff, my laptop, and we are traversing down stuff that if you fall,
And a tripod.
and
Yeah,
plus
and
a,
I was gonna get to the
and a
so
big
the
tripod, right?
yeah.
And this is not. I mean, it's a great tripod. It's not light, but I find that this tripod is so much more secure than like the one Peter has there.
We'll get into some of
That one there.
So where it's funny. We all have our gear.
Right.
Where I think that Brad, I think that you have some very reasonable gear, but you don't have one of these,
I do not.
which looks like some kind of torture device. We'll let Peter explain that in a minute.
However, I do have one of these, but it's a bigger
Is
one.
that the platypod?
I have that bigger platypod,
Yeah, those are cool.
and I have found that this has saved my bacon on more than one shoot.
So I was gonna ask, and this is always the challenge, right?
Right.
Is like, what gear do you absolutely need, and do you actually miss the gear that you left behind? Because I always find that if I go out to a location and I've gotten to this part where I'm trying to do these exercises where I travel, I go photograph the moon and like to go to Mammoth and
Right.
Nona Lake and stuff, and I have all my gear in the hotel, right? I take pretty much everything, and I've tried to say, you know what, I'm going to go out today, but I'm only taking the 24 to 70, and I always seem to find plenty of things to shoot
Sure.
with the 24 to 70.
Sure.
Now, if I had the 100 to 400 with me, I would probably be swapping lenses, and I'd be like, oh, I'm going to shoot that long, I'm going to shoot this wide. Would you say that you can get just as good of work or be just as satisfied with your shots if you had less equipment?
I think you're probably going to get better shots if you have less equipment because you're going to spend time on your composition and visualizing your shots and doing the things that are really important, as opposed to when you have more equipment, you're just kind of like,
Right.
this, that. I think you're going to get better shots if you have a plan and you go out and you really work it.
The issue comes back to, and it's a real
It's a hard issue.
kick in the
I know exactly what he's going to say.
kick in the guts, is that when you go through all the 5, 10, 20,000 photos, and then you isolate the data and see, right, what lenses and what body that you used,
Right.
you'll be shocked. So, I mean, that's what Brad took, and I added to that 2 more camera bodies, okay, this stuff, and some extra stuff, which is just idiotic. Now, knowing what I know because I'm a slow learner, 1124, 2470, 70 to 200, 1.4x, and a couple of bodies, 3 bodies, 4 bodies, that's all you need.
Peter, show us how much luggage you have.
None of this is mine. This is all yours. No, that big white bag, look. That's his. Yeah, we like to travel
This
light.
is Peter traveling light.
Hey, A&W.
American.
This is Brad at the Arches going over the cliff. There he goes, climbing down on the rocks underneath the ledge where the waves are breaking.
We didn't realise that we signed up for the off-roading experience of Indonesia, because that's what we're getting. The road is actually blocked down there. There's a truck, so we're screwed. We'll probably have to stay here for a week.
Good morning, Harlem.
Good morning.
There's Harlem. There's Eddie.